So welcome everybody to today's Pacific Southwest MHTTC's webinar on establishing a virtual private practice. My name is Ingrid Severson, and I'm the project manager for the Pacific Southwest Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. Thank you for joining us. Just a reminder that although we are funded by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, the content of this session may not necessarily reflect the views of SAMHSA or the Department of Health and Human Services. This is also our security disclaimer that states that if we have a security issue, the session will automatically be ended. You will then receive an email with the new join link for the session. And then moving along, we have a map here you should see on your screen. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Pacific Southwest MHTTC, we are part of a national network of technology transfer centers and serve SAMHSA's Region 9, which includes the US Pacific Islands, Hawaii, Arizona, Nevada, and California. You'll notice on your screen, each region has 3 different colored boxes. The blue boxes represent the addiction TTCs. The green boxes are the prevention TTCs, and the orange boxes, which include our center, are the mental health TTCs. Many of you are joining from all over these areas, which is wonderful. If you're not from Region 9 and you haven't yet been in touch with your specific region's TTCs and you would like to, please do reach out, as we're always happy to connect you to the other centers. Our Pacific Southwest MHTTC provides training, technical assistance, and resources to support the mental health and school mental health workforce in our region to adopt and implement evidence-based practices across the mental health continuum of care. Our center offers no-cost support to the mental health and school mental health field through webinars like the session we're on today, as well as through coaching, consultation, resources, and tools. And hopefully someday soon, we can continue with our on-site trainings. So moving ahead, this is to show the tiered process of the technical assistance our center provides. And moving on to the next slide, I'm going to pause here to give you all a moment to absorb this slide, which highlights our center's values. The MHTTC network upholds affirming, respectful, and recovery-oriented language in all of our activities. I invite you all to muse on the phrases listed here and know that we honor these principles as well. We're so honored to have Gloria Osborne join us today to share her lessons learned, recommendations, and best practices developed over the last 1.5 years in the private practice world. Before she begins, I'd like to touch on a bit of her background. Gloria B. Osborne, LCSW, is a bilingual and bicultural Spanish-speaking mental health clinician with over 10 years experience providing direct care in both inpatient and outpatient mental health settings. She earned her Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and Spanish from Loyola Marymount University and earned a master's degree in social work from the University of Southern California. She currently runs a full-time virtual private practice called Glow in Therapy and also works part-time as a medical social worker for Kaiser Permanente. Before joining Kaiser and starting a private practice, she worked many years in directly operated and county contracted facilities within Los Angeles County. And now I'll hand it off to you, Gloria.
Welcome. I want to thank you all for taking the time to be here with me today. I wanted to share a quick agenda with you just so you know what we'll be covering today. We'll be starting with the highlights of online therapy. I'll be sharing some statistics and background about why you might want to do therapy online. I'll then be transitioning into brand and business development. From there, we'll go over some logistics, such as setting up, starting, and managing a virtual private practice. We'll go over marketing and building an online presence, and then we'll conclude with going over how to manage some crisis protocols in relation to establishing safety with our clients in the virtual space. Some learning objectives that we have outlined for you today is we're going to review some insights regarding online therapy, obtain guidance on developing a mental health business and brand, learn the basic requirements to start a virtual private practice, learn how to use social media platforms to create an online presence for a virtual private practice, and also become effective in managing business matters and crisis protocols that arise in a private practice setting. Before we get started, I'd like to just encourage you to join me in a grounding and intention setting just activity. If you're anything like me, your schedule is probably packed and you're on the go, and we don't take enough time to just pause and really check in with ourselves. So I want to just encourage you at this moment to just take a moment to honor yourself for being here, for taking the time to be open to this education webinar, for being curious and interested in learning more about establishing a private practice online. Check in with yourself, body, soul, and mind. Perhaps you want to take a couple deep breaths and just let yourself enjoy this moment. And I'd like to welcome you to set an intention for today's presentation. What brought you here? What made you sign up? You get to spend the next hour and a half with me learning a little bit about what I have to share. And I would love for you to set an intention for what you're hoping to get out of today's session. So essential as mental health clinicians to be grounded and centered in the work that we do. And when we start and end our days with intention, we're likely to get much more out of it. So I hope that you move forward in setting intentions every day. You can go ahead and set your intention aside, and we'll come back to it at the end of our presentation. So transitioning into why start a virtual private practice. I thought it was important to share some statistics out there with you guys. As you know, this pandemic that we've all been experiencing during this past year has taken a lot out of us. It's really shooken our foundation and made us look at different parts of our lives and just where we're at. Outside of having this health pandemic, the United States is still very much in a mental health pandemic, as you can see with that first statistic. 1 in every 5 adults in the US is diagnosed with a mental health disorder every year. And out of those people who are diagnosed with a mental health disorder, 56% of Americans with a mental health condition do not receive adequate treatment. So that's more than half of Americans who are diagnosed with a mental health disorder are not receiving adequate treatment. One of the reasons why they're not receiving adequate treatment is due to access. People have trouble accessing quality mental health care. And it just so happens that telehealth makes mental health care more accessible and convenient to Americans. And so that might inspire you to consider starting your private practice online. When I looked at the statistics and what's out there with the research, I'm really eager. If you're anything like me, you probably love learning about what's going on with mental health and where the trends are going. And so I'm really eager to learn, how has this pandemic really shifted and changed our mental health field? But what was out there right now regarding the effectiveness of online therapy is that online therapy is actually very effective for treating disorders such as depression, anxiety, and trauma. It's just as effective, online CBT is just as effective as in-person CBT when it comes to specific disorders such as depression, panic, and anxiety disorders. Online therapy is also effective with various populations, whether it be children, adolescents, or adults. And it turns out that our clients are just as satisfied with online therapy versus in-person therapy. And then this last piece is probably really convenient for us as providers, as it's more accessible to clients who may delay or drop out of treatment. So what we're finding out is that clients are actually staying engaged and more likely to show up and less cancellations when you have therapy offered online. So now we're going to go over some of the benefits to online therapy for both the client and the provider. I'll go ahead and start with the client side. So number one, the most beneficial piece to online therapy is the convenience, right? Like all you need is the internet, smartphone, laptop, computer, whatever it might be. You can have therapy right at your fingertips. You can do it from the comfort of your own home or the comfort of your own car. I have a lot of my clients sometimes are getting off of work and they go and they park, at the beach or wherever it might be that they have some privacy and they can enjoy therapy right from wherever they're at. You have greater access to different types of providers, perhaps whatever it is that you might be challenged with. Maybe there's no providers in your direct community area offering that. In relation to the state of California, if you live here, I'm speaking in relation to California because I am here in California. Basically, if you're in Northern California and you want a therapist in Southern California, online therapy makes that accessible. You're able to still preserve the confidentiality. Sometimes people hesitate to start mental health services and going into centers or private practice places for fear of people that they might run into. Doing online therapy from wherever you're at really provides that extra confidentiality piece and privacy. There are many quality providers available providing online therapy, especially during this past year, as most of us had to transition to online therapy. There are different types of quality providers accessible. And then you have a wider selection. As I previously mentioned, let's say you're dealing with a specific challenge or issue and you want a specific kind of therapist, you might find that wider selection available when looking into online therapy. As a provider, there's lots of benefits. And so I also do want to mention these are just some benefits, not all of the benefits. These were the ones that I felt were most applicable with sharing in today's presentation. But there's many more benefits outside of these. But for a provider, it's a really convenient way to have a flexible schedule. And then you have fewer expenses. I know for myself, you're actually sitting here. This is exactly what my clients see in session with me. And I'm actually in my second bedroom in my apartment. So I don't pay rent for a space. So that's something that you might want to keep in mind if you have that space available to you. That might be an incentive to start therapy online. You're also not spending as much money with traveling. It's less wear and tear on your car because you're not thinking about, okay, where do I have to go? Where am I going to park? And those kinds of things. And it gives you the opportunity to just utilize those funds in other places for your business to be able to help you upscale quicker. It's also convenient for you because as for me, I don't have to leave my home. I'm here in my own home. You have greater access to different types of clients. I'll get more into this later, but being on social media has made me accessible to all clients in California, and I'm all the way in Southern California, and I have a couple clients up in Northern California. Having an in-person office wouldn't allow me to have that. So that's something to keep in mind as well, like where you're able to just access in terms of clients. And then, as I previously mentioned, there's fewer cancellations and no-shows in the online setting. Of course, with benefits, we also have potential challenges of online therapy. These are also not all of the challenges listed, but as I mentioned, I picked out some that I felt were most important to go over the presentation. So in terms of client challenges, sometimes, if you're not someone, you have to think like as a provider, am I someone who is comfortable with speaking into a webcam and not having the client in front of me and not being able to read body language and things like that as efficiently as you might in person? You have to think about that because for the client might feel that there's a lack of empathy or connection. There might be some challenges with technology as we run into sometimes with outages. So that's something to keep in mind. For clients who specifically are looking into insurance and wanting to utilize insurance for their sessions, you have to make sure that your insurance covers telehealth sessions. And then for those of us who, are in a setting at home, as most of us were this past year, or with everybody in the home, there might be an issue around confidentiality as people are just now starting to transition into going back to work. A client might feel like, hey, I actually really looked forward to leaving my home for therapy or going into that therapy office space to have my privacy. They might not have that luxury given the current circumstances that we're in. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And as for the provider, some potential challenges that come up are issues with technology as well. Some ethical and legal concerns, like we live in an honor system. If a client tells us they live here in the state of California, I'm not going to show up and go knock on their door and make sure that they're there, but that's something that you have to communicate and make clear to the client. If I'm licensed in California, I have to make sure that you are somewhere in the state of California. So just keeping that in mind as well. And then also thinking about who might be appropriate for online therapy. Online therapy is not an appropriate setting for everyone. I myself, most of my training in my social work program was for the severe and persistent mental illness population. That might not be a client that I see in a private practice setting. I worked a couple years in an inpatient setting. I don't know that I would be open to seeing somebody unless making sure that they're very stable and they have a program in place and know what the safety protocols are for that client. So you'll want to do a screening for clients and just make sure that they're in an appropriate setting to be doing online therapy. All right, so now we're going to transition into actually starting your business or really thinking about your business. Now, having had this opportunity today to share some of my knowledge with you guys, I really thought to myself, if I was to learn this from the beginning, again, as being somebody who didn't really know much, I was out there trying to do research before I got started, and there's conflicting information, and you don't know, what's right and what's wrong, and things like that. I thought to myself, well, what would have been most helpful for me to learn at the beginning? And I thought, well, branding is so important because it helps you to just really understand where you're coming from when you're starting your business. And so I found this beautiful quote by Seth Godin: a brand is the set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that, taken together, account for a consumer's decision to choose one product or service over another. Now, as mental health clinicians or providers, we're not taught about business and branding in school. We're too busy learning about how to conduct an assessment or, how to look at systems and how to take note of what's affecting a client's life. And so operating from this kind of mind frame, thinking about a brand is very different for us, but nothing says that we can't think about mental health from this perspective. I think that, my hope is that in the information I share with you guys, it really gets you thinking about how would I brand myself as a mental health business in the way that other companies have effectively branded themselves. So I thought we can start this with a activity. This is an activity to show how powerful branding is. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the chat so I can see, but I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions, right? So here's a whole bunch of different logos. Now, if I wanted to buy a pair of shoes, which company am I going to? You guys can use the chat, that way I can see. Yes, Nike for sure, definitely. All right, so now if I'm gonna go, I really want some coffee in between my client sessions, where am I going? All right, Starbucks, okay. Now I want to buy the latest, greatest phone, where am I going? I might be kind of biased. I'm an iPhone person, so. All right. Okay. Now, if I need gas in my car, where am I going? All right, Shell. Awesome. And last but not least, or actually I have two left. If I want some food, where am I going? You have a couple options for food here, actually. Yes, definitely. McDonald's, Starbucks, For sure, Target does have food. Yeah, I was wondering if somebody would get that. Awesome. Okay. And then where am I going if I'm buying clothes? Target, for sure. Okay, so as you guys can see here with this activity, actually, before I share on that, I want to know what's something that all of these brands have in common. I want to see if somebody notices. What's something that all of these brands in this picture right here have in common? Yes, they're all known. Yes, yes, they're all known for sure. But I saw Ingrid wrote it. There's no words. Yet you guys knew what the companies were, right? All of these companies at one point, I'm a 90s kid. So at one point, I remember Nike used to have Nike and the Starbucks used to say Starbucks coffee, right? Yes, great logos too, for sure. Solid colors, right? And so all of this to say that, branding is so powerful. This exercise was really meant to just highlight the power of branding. No names, yet you know what all of these companies are and what their products are. I said specific products and you guys were able to name what company it was. Not only are they nameless, but their branding is so effective that you think about a specific company when you're thinking about a particular product. Like if I'm like, I want a brand new phone, right? You can technically go to Target too. Target sells phones, but either way, all of you guys were like, hey, Apple's where I'm going to go for a phone. Either way, branding has become so integrated into our everyday life that sometimes we don't even realize how powerful it is. But this kind of impact that some of these companies have had, I want you guys to take on this attitude when it comes to starting your mental health business and branding, operating from that same kind of way. How can I make myself that effective or that impactful to who is trying to find me or who I'm trying to get to find me? So when I think about branding, hold on one second, go back. Why build a brand? I broke it down into 3 different areas that I thought were really important for us to cover today. We're going to break it down by image, which is all about what you are. Then we're going to talk about identity, which is who you are, and your purpose, which is connected to what and why you do it. So when you're thinking about building your own brand as a mental health professional, I want you to think about, does my brand encompass these 3 things? Can my consumer tell what I am, who I am, what and why I do what I do? So let's go ahead and take a look at image. I want you to think of image like looking in the mirror. Like what do I look like, right? I'm hoping that my personality comes across with image. I'm hoping that there's a great visual look and feel to it. It's something that's appeasing, something to look at, right? Somebody said those logos were great logos, right? So this is the same kind of attitude that you want to take on. You want to think about font. Most of us are likely going to have words in our logos if we're going to be using logos, or at least your business name, right, is going to have to be in certain fonts. You'll want to think about font for when it comes to things like your website, your business cards, right? You'll want to think about colors and what colors are most appeasing. Think about the way colors make you feel. Like when you look at a color, and if you're going to a mental health place, like what kind of colors might you want to see when you go there? Thinking about logo design, you'll want to think about something that's welcoming and something that's inviting. And thinking about imagery, what kind of image are you hoping to portray to the public? How do you want a client to feel when they see your business? Whatever your image is what's really going to help you to stand apart in our field. So all of these important things to consider when looking in the mirror for your business. Next, we're going to go over identity. This is a little bit more specific because we're focused on who you are. So this is your name, this is your vision, any kind of values you might have. Something that I often teach my coaching clients about coming up with names or visions is doing this values activity. Sometimes we might not know, we might be stuck. Like, I don't know, I want a catchy name, but I don't know where to start. connect with your values. What are the reasons or the motives behind why you got into this field to begin with? Or what are the values that you live by every day? Think about the different values that you connect with. Look at those words, look at those phrases, adjectives, and I'm sure something creative will come about for you. Thinking about whether you want to have a mission statement for your private practice. What do you stand for? What does the business live for? And thinking about any kind of taglines or slogans that might be catchy, right? Because those are the things that people connect with. So that's what identity is about. It's about building a personal connection with the consumer. You want them to get a feel for who and what you are, right? It tells the client who you are and what the business is about. So before we transition to the last piece of branding, I do want to do another activity in the chat to just show how famous some taglines are. So let me pull up the chat so I can see your guys' answers. So I'm going to say a tagline and you let me know what company it is. So maybe she's born with it. Most of the women are probably going to get this. Maybelline, for sure. What about the happiest place on earth? It's going to bring out the fans for sure. Disneyland, definitely. What about Just Do It? Nike, definitely. And then what about You're in Good Hands? Allstate, right? So all of these companies are different kinds of companies, different kinds of things at these various different places, but yet we all know them. They're taglines that stick. We hear them all the time in the advertising, and we see them in the magazines, or we see them on social media. And those are the things that, we've connected, we've bonded with those things, and we see them because they're just so out there in our society. So that's something to think about when you're thinking about your own business. If I came up with a tagline or a slogan for mental health, what would it look like? Yes, I'm loving it. Is McDonald's for sure. Yes, that's another great one. Wonderful. All right. So now transitioning into the last piece that I'd love for you to consider when thinking about building a brand is purpose. This is the most important piece out of the three. What and why you do it. So when thinking about building a brand and thinking about it from the purpose lens, we're thinking about who you're serving, what it is that they need, really thinking about that particular population. Why might I want to come to you for mental health services? Something that really helps in this area, like thinking about purpose, is really connecting with the pain points that population has. How are you going to attract that client? What can they expect from you? What value do you bring? Why might I want to go to you for depression versus the other person? So really thinking about what unique value you're going to bring to that specific topic. And then thinking about how you want to connect with your clients and what that looks like. So purpose really allows the client to connect with you, and it's what gets you attracting your ideal client. All right, so that brings me to my biggest secret to share. If you're going to take away anything from my presentation today, I really want to really highlight this point, because if I would have known this from the beginning, I think I would have saved myself a few months of just trying to figure out, like, why are the clients not coming? What is going on, and putting myself out there. So my biggest secret to share with you guys today, when it comes to building a brand and purpose, is picking a specialty area. Now, as I mentioned, or as was mentioned in my bio, I'm somebody who has lots of training in community mental health, both at the county and directly operated in contracted agencies. And so if you've worked in those settings, we're almost trained as like a jack of all trades therapist. Whatever the client is dealing with, like, you're just expected to just run with it. You get the client, you go do the assessment, you do whatever. The difference here in private practice is this is your business. you get to decide like what brought me to mental health to begin with and why am I passionate about this field. My encouragement, my secret is just pick 2 to 3 specialties, because then that's what shows the client that you're the expert in X, Y, and Z. Now, granted, you could probably treat any kind of client, I'm sure. If you have any kind of training in community mental health, whoever shows up at our door, we're willing and ready and open. And if that's the kind of therapist you want to be in a virtual private practice setting, I welcome you to do that. But that can be very overwhelming for the consumer. If I'm going to your page and I'm trying to find a therapist who sees depression and I see 50 types of different specialties listed out, I'm going to be overwhelmed. I might not connect with that. Versus somebody who says, I specialize in relationships, love, and depression, for example. Or here I listed some of the most popular ones like life transitions, relationships, depression, anxiety, grief and loss, stress. There's so many different types of specialty areas. Me, myself, if you go to my social media, you'll automatically be able to tell she tends to talk about 3 things all the time. I'm always talking about relationships and how to glow up your relationships. I'm talking about self-care and how to glow up your self-care. And I'm talking about self-love and how to glow up your self-love. And once I did that, once I honed in those 3 areas, those are things that I'm super passionate about. My client caseload, like I got so full, like there were months where I wouldn't hear from people. And once I made this transition, like I'm just going to focus on these 3, I started to attract that ideal client. Clients started to connect with me. I didn't feel all over the place because now I'm only focused on the things that I know are like the cream of the crop for me. Like these are the topics that I connect with the most and why I came into mental health. And so just really thinking about that for you, start thinking about that. If you don't know, that's okay too. Again, I would suggest that you connect with the values activity, as I mentioned, thinking about values, and the question, what brought you to this field to begin with, should help you coming up with a few specialty areas that might stand out to you. So I'd like to share with you guys my own logo, because that was something that I didn't include at the beginning. So here's my own logo and my own tagline that I have here. And if you can please share in the chat any kinds of feelings or thoughts that come up when you see this logo and tagline. Like think about some of the things that I shared with you guys. Like when we're thinking about, when we're thinking about why we're doing what we're doing. Sorry guys, I cannot see the chat. But why we're thinking about what we're doing, why we're what you're hoping to connect with the client about, thinking about a client seeing this and knowing like, are they going to be able to tell what I'm doing, right? Yes, I see the brain and the connection for sure. Awesome. So glad. Logo looks peaceful. Yes, thank you. And so carefree, yes, sense of hope with the glow. Yes, that is true. Glow in therapy is actually a play on my name too. I say, you know, you do therapy so you can glow with glow. That's how that came up for me. But this is what you're hoping when you're thinking about this, you know, and you're thinking about a logo, when you're thinking about a tagline, you want the client to be able to tell what it is that you do and tell what it is that they're going to be able to get out of coming to you as a business. All of my clients know Gloria is going to somehow help me tap into my own glow. Gloria is somehow going to help me tap into my freedom, right? So somebody said the tagline gives off a sense of empowerment. Absolutely. I love that. That's exactly what I'm hoping to do with the client. So this is the kind of thing, like when you're thinking about it, and I will share with you guys transparently, like I am no graphic designer. I hired someone, I said, here are my ideas. This is what I want. And they came up with this logo for me and it worked. So yes, find your glow and freedom gives me hope. Awesome. Cool. So this is just, I wanted to just share with you guys, you know, as somebody who went through this and somebody who came up with something that I feel the clients have really, I get feedback from my clients all the time about the colors, about the invitation, about feeling like I feel connected. And I wanted to share with you guys, I wish somebody would have shared with me the importance of doing things like branding at the beginning, because that would have saved me a lot, right? So where did you find someone? Oh, I will be answering questions at the end of the presentation. I will for sure share some places that you can look into that. But thank you so much for sharing on that. I'm gonna now transition. So that's just a little bit on branding. Again, this is really meant to be something that will just inspire you to get started. And if you want to ever bounce ideas off, or you have questions about things, I'm more than willing to be available to people. You can reach out. I love helping people come up with this stuff. But once you kind of have an idea of where you're at with branding, you'll definitely want to think about starting your business. So you've come up with branding, you've come up with your colors, you figured out your font, you figured out your logo, you figured out a name. There are some logistics that are essential when it comes to establishing your virtual private practice, all the business side of things. So to begin with, setting up your business, there are a few things that are important. Number one, in the state of California, which I'm sure in most states, but I can speak on the state of California, you have to have a BBS licensed, or at least be supervised by a licensed provider in order to establish yourself as somebody who can have a virtual online practice. The second thing you'll want to consider is deciding on your business name, which I'm hoping, spending some time around branding and what that might look like for you connects you with a business name. Here in the state of California, if you're going to be doing any kind of mental health, your business name has to have the word therapy or counseling in it. So Glow in Therapy. I have a lovely friend who has online and in-person practice. And she is somebody who focuses on helping women who have just become mothers in the Latinx community. And her private practice, not that it's virtual, but it's virtual and in person, is called Madre Counseling. So her business has the word counseling in it. So that's going to be really essential. If you're using anything with your license here in the state of California, it's required that your business has therapy or counseling in the name. While I am not a legal consultant, there's a couple things that I do want to mention that are important for you to consider. Number one, you definitely have to have malpractice insurance. Whether it's in person or not, you got to have that malpractice insurance. But specifically in the telehealth field, you'll want to make sure, as you're investigating and doing your research on which malpractice insurance coverage you might want to get, a good question to ask them is, what does their telehealth coverage look like? Because you want to make sure that that coverage translates to the online space. Something else that you'll want to do is complete a DBA, which is also known as doing business as, for a sole proprietorship. So this is going to be important for starting out. As I mentioned, I'm not a legal consultant, but I do know in order to start here in the state of California, it's essential that you have a sole proprietorship. California does not allow therapists to have LLCs. So that's something for you guys, if you want to do further investigating on that and talk to a legal consultant about that, I'm sure they can confirm that for you. Once you establish a sole proprietorship and you reach a certain threshold, consulting with an accountant might be in your best benefit to decide to then transition to an S Corp. So while we don't have the option of using our BBS license for LLCs, we can use our BBS license when we establish an S Corp. Now, I know a lot of that is a lot of information, but this is just for the purposes of starting. So start as a sole proprietorship and then definitely consult with the experts in regards to the legal aspects and accounting as well. I personally am not an expert in this, as I mentioned, so I used an online legal service to complete my DBA. I will share about that at the end if you guys want to know what that is. But basically, you pay a legal service and they handle all the paperwork for you and make sure that your DBA gets completed in the way that it needs to be. A DBA is essential before opening a business bank account. The bank will not give you a business bank account without having your DBA first. A DBA can take some time, can take like a couple months to clear all of that. Basically, what they do is they make sure that nobody else in the United States has the name or is operating with the same kind of business. You want to make sure that nobody is out there already with a certain particular name, which is super important. So paying for somebody to do this signifies that they've done the diligent research to make sure that nobody else has already established that business with that particular name. So once you've achieved and completed everything to get your DBA, you can then go open a business bank account. I highly recommend doing that because you'll want to separate personal and business bank account stuff for tax purposes. And in order to open that business bank account outside of a DBA, you'll also need an EIN, which is an employer identification number. You go to the IRS website and you can get that for free once you've established your business. All right, so from there, you'll want to consider where you're going to be doing your online business practices. Not every city, I can speak to Los Angeles County, not every city in Los Angeles County requires you to have a business license. My recommendation here is that you got to follow up with the city that you plan to have your business in. Here in the city of Burbank, where I'm at, they do require me to have a business license. So that was something that I found out throughout this process. But I also know that in another city, it's not necessarily needed to start your business. So that's some research that you'll want to look into and make sure, like, am I going to be required to have a business license in the city where I plan to do my online business? You'll want to think about the electronic health record system that you're doing, because that's where you're going to be managing most of your paperwork is online. And also thinking about scheduling. An electronic healthcare record system can also help you with scheduling. There's various different types of programs out there. I encourage you to do your research and talk to people who are already using some of these to see which one you might want to utilize. Specific to the telehealth platform, you need to have a HIPAA compliant video platform. There's tons of those out there as well. So you can look into those and see which one fits for you. You'll want to think about, do I want to be a private pay clinician or insurance panel clinician? Now, I have friends who are both. I have friends who are solely insurance paneled. I have friends who are solely private pay. I myself am a private pay clinician. This is more of a personal question for you. And is this something, do I want to just solely focus on private pay or insurance panels? I think that there's pros and cons to both, but I would encourage you to do some investigating and see which one fits best for you. The same thing when it comes to setting your price. Your price is really going to be contingent on what city or community you're planning to do your services in, and also thinking about the population that you're hoping to attract. Depending on where you're at, you'll want to think and do some investigating and see what's the average therapist in my area charging. You'll also want to consider your experience, your expertise, how many years in the field, how many years licensed, lots of things factor into setting price, but that's a personal question for you. Like, what am I comfortable charging for an individual session? As a rule of thumb for myself, I had made a promise to myself, I would never set a price that would be something that I personally wouldn't pay for therapy. So whatever I'm willing to invest in therapy is what I have set as my price. Then you'll want to decide how many clients you're willing and able to serve, right? So it's really going to depend on how much time you have, on whether you have a full-time job, whether you want to transition into private practice full-time yourself. I'm someone who loves working in the healthcare industry. And so I knew that I was going to want to do a private practice and slowly kind of transitioned. I was full-time And then while I was full-time, I knew like, okay, I don't think I can have more than, I stayed between like 10 to 12 clients before I became part-time. After I transitioned part-time, where I'm most comfortable at, and this is again a personal question for you, is somewhere between 20 to 22 clients. And not all of those clients come weekly. Some of those clients come bi-weekly. So again, that's a personal question for you. Like, what am I willing and able to do? How many clients am I willing and able to serve? And also thinking about your own, taking care of your own self. You don't want to overschedule yourself and things like that. And so really thinking about those kinds of things. Something else that I didn't mention when I went over price that I don't want to forget to mention is considering whether you're going to offer pro bono or sliding scale fees. I know that for myself at the beginning, I used to have a pro bono slot. I've done therapy for undocumented college students before. I've offered like a series of 10 to 12 sessions as a means to assist and help out my community, because that's a population and interest of mine. But again, that's a personal question for you. Like, is that something I'm able to do? And is that something I'm willing to do? And thinking about sliding scale as well. You get to decide how many sliding scale slots you want to offer and what your sliding scale fees are. So some other things to consider outside of setting up your business. Now you want to think about starting your business. We have some logistical things like investing in good equipment. Specifically for the telehealth space, you'll want to think about investing in a really good webcam so your client can see you clearly. You'll want to invest in good lighting. I know myself, I have special light bulbs here in our second bedroom, as well as a ring light. Sometimes for when it gets a little too dark in here and I want to change the lighting, I use a ring light. So just thinking about some good equipment to invest in. You'll want to think about the way that you're setting up your office space and making sure that it's welcoming and inviting. So as I mentioned to you guys earlier, this is my private practice setting right here. You guys are getting it in vivo. And so I've included some things that are important to me, which are just crystals and some books and connection with who I am. Like the sign right there, I'm not sure if you guys can see it, it says Glow Getter, which for me is obviously it's a play on words, go getter, and it's just a way to inspire my clients, right? So just being mindful of what your background looks like, because that's what the clients are looking at. You want to test your internet connection and speed, at least 10 megabytes per second, and then always having an Ethernet cable as backup over the Wi-Fi, because sometimes there's issues with connection, and always being connected to an Ethernet cable makes the connection more stable. You want to think about where you want to market yourself. I'll get more into marketing and where you can market yourself and what marketing can look like in a few slides. Actually, I'll get into that. And you'll want to think about just screening clients in general, because as I mentioned, you'll want to attract your ideal client. And most therapists offer some sort of consultation session where the client gets an opportunity to get to know you, and then you also too can get to know the client and see whether the client will be a good fit for you. So just thinking, okay, what is my protocol going to be when it comes to screening clients? You want to make sure before you get your first client in the door that they review their paperwork and make sure that all of the necessary paperwork is completed. This includes things like a consent for services and policy practices. Specific to the telehealth setting, we have the emergency contact form, which I do outline at the end of this presentation what's most important to cover in that emergency contact form. But you got to make sure that every single one of those clients has that, because that's your backup. That's what's going to help you in terms of liability, and making sure that you covered your bases on safety when it comes to your client. And last but not least, I wanted to just encourage you guys to be patient. Like the saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. It does really take time to create great things. So it is something that evolves over time. It's not the kind of thing that happens one day to the next, but it can. And I, would be so happy if that happened for you guys, and I welcome that. But also to just be patient if it doesn't, and just know that you're doing the right thing, and the clients who are meant to work for you, they will find, or work with you, they will find you. I guarantee you, they will find you. All right, now when we think about managing your business, my number one tip here is take really good care of yourself. I alluded to this earlier when I talked about scheduling and thinking about schedule. Most of us in this profession are caregivers, genuine hearts. We put everyone and everybody else's needs before our own, and we don't put ourselves first. This is your reminder. Please put yourself first when it comes to your business, making sure that you have an adequate self-care practice that you're following, and just connecting with the people that you feel really understand you and really can just connect with you on the day-to-day. That brings me to my next point, which is about networking. Most of us were likely trained in those community mental health settings, so we're so used to working with lots of other people. In private practice, especially if you're venturing out by yourself, it can feel very lonely. So it's essential to build a community of other clinicians that are in private practice. Not only is it good to just for your mental health and to be connected, but it serves a good purpose in terms of referrals. I know myself at this point, I can't take any more clients. I am full. So I have a list of referrals, like clinicians out in the field that I feel comfortable referring people who reach out to me, like, hey, you might want to check out this person. And these are the things that I know she specializes in, and this is why I would refer her. So that really helps you in terms of building your own referrals and also being a referral resource for other people. Perhaps as people are graduating out of therapy, you consult with the people on your referral list, like, hey, if you have somebody, send them my way. It's just a wonderful way to build networking out in the field. Another way to do that, and this is also related to marketing, is thinking about the resource directories that you want to be on. The most popular one that I'm sure most of us know about is Psychology Today. I encourage you to do your own research related to your own specialties and checking out and seeing if there's resource directories related to that, because you'd be surprised. There's tons of directories out there for therapists, and it's a great way to network and also market yourself for getting clients. As I mentioned, solo private practice can feel very lonely. When you want to kind of create a checks and balances system, it's going to be essential that you consider investing in supervision, whether that's individual or group. There's lots of different types of groups out there that are available. Different clinicians have come up with groups to just support other clinicians out in the field. And it can be paid, it cannot be paid. I mean, whatever it is that you feel is most comfortable for you, I just encourage you to consider it, because it's a great way to just not only network and also connect with others, but just to check your own like countertransference and consult on cases and things like that, because we owe that to our clients, that we're making sure that we're keeping up with those kinds of things. And my last piece here is about investing in yourself and your business. I know for me at the beginning, when I was feeling overwhelmed and unsure what to do, I connected with a business coach that I felt really helped me just kind of outline. And I had some ideas and I just kind of needed that organization, and I was able to invest in myself and do that for my business. And I haven't looked back since. It was great, and it really helped me kind of flush out some ideas. So I highly encourage you to do this. I encourage everybody that works with me, whether you're a client or whether you're a coaching client, to just really take that time to invest in yourself and your business. You get what you put into it. All right, now I want to talk about marketing your business and where you might consider marketing your business. So number one, with marketing, this is where brand consistency is really going to come into play. So that's why I started with branding, because once you figured out things like colors and logo and fonts and things like that, it makes brand consistency at this point with marketing much easier for you. What I mean with brand consistency is like, let's take Instagram, for example. If I'm not sure like what my brand is or what I'm doing, and I just start posting all of these random things and then I start marketing, it's going to be really hard for the consumer to connect with you versus, and I've been there, done that. That's how I know. I can tell you guys, don't do it. If you can start with the specialty and figure out your colors and those kinds of things, and then kind of create some content and then start marketing yourself, then people can connect with you. It's cohesive, it flows, it makes sense, and people like to look at nice things. So that's something that you have to consider when and before you start marketing yourself is, do I have brand consistency across the board? You'll definitely want to invest in some sort of quality headshots. And this doesn't mean like go find a photographer and pay a photographer. If you want to, by all means do so. I can tell you right now that my photo that they showed you at the beginning, Meet the Facilitator, I actually had my wonderful fiance take that picture of me in portrait mode with my iPhone. So our phones do lots of wonderful things. Just put on a nice outfit, have a nice background, and have somebody take a nice picture of you. It really helps the client to connect with you and to feel like, wow, like, okay, this person invested in their appearance and how they show themselves online. Thinking about advertising. Now, again, so this is really meant to just get you guys thinking about this. I could probably do a whole hour presentation on advertising in itself, but I will share a couple things with you to walk away with in terms of advertising. Advertising doesn't always have to cost money. The first means of advertising you have is leveraging your own network. I want you to think of your own network of family, friends, colleagues, and asking for their feedback. Like, hey, I know I do it. I will message my sister, like, hey, what do you think about this post? Because she's a lot younger than me. There's a 12-year age difference there. I'm older. So I like to get ideas from different age groups as well. And like, what is appealing to people, so just really thinking about that and asking them for feedback, like, does this look good, does it not, and really thinking about your colleagues who are connected with people or who might have referrals to send your way. That's the best way for you to just get your foot in the door with advertising. Also, advertising in social media can go a long way. That's up to you on how much you want to invest there and look into, but that will be the easiest and best way to grow yourself. You'll want to invest and investigate as well, how I might tackle advertising myself in the social media space. It can be very complicated, so I just want to mention it. And if it's something of interest to you, I highly encourage you to check it out. Something that you'll want to keep in mind as well is, how are your clients finding you? Really thinking about how to keep track of those inquiries and how clients are finding you, because then that way you'll know, like, okay, maybe I want to invest a little bit more money in this. If my clients are coming to me off of Instagram, then maybe I want to figure out how to make myself more accessible on Instagram. So if you just kind of keep inventory and keep track of that, that is really great for you in terms of what you choose to invest in advertising. And then also thinking about different ways to expand your network in marketing, specifically on LinkedIn. I get requests all the time from all different kinds of therapists out there in private practice, both virtually and in person, that want to connect on LinkedIn and just kind of collaborate on different kinds of things. LinkedIn is going to be your friend when it comes to expanding your network. Something else that I want to mention in this slide specifically when it comes to advertising and thinking about social media is, you'll want to do some research related to hashtag popularity. So in terms of mental health, right? So you'll want to spend some time looking at what are the most popular hashtags for mental health, and utilizing the location feature. For those of you that have Instagram, Instagram allows you to do a location feature. And when you tap that location, it will show you all different kinds of photos from other people that have tagged a post in that same location. Here in Burbank, I'm not too far from the Americana. Sometimes when I post something on Instagram, I'm tagging the Americana because somebody at the Americana is going to look at that and say, hey, oh, wow, there's a therapist that does business not far from here. I've been thinking about therapy. I might want to reach out to this person. That's how you kind of make yourself more accessible to people in the community. You'll also want to consider who are the leading mental health professionals on social media and just check out their pages, see what you like, see what you don't like. If it's working for them, it'll likely work for you. So those are just some tips as far as advertising and thinking about how to make yourself a little bit more accessible on social media. That brings me to my second biggest secret that I share with my coaching clients. Now I'm going to share with you guys. So for those of you that do have Instagram, I want to do a quick little activity so that you guys can see. So if you're open and willing, if you have Instagram, I would like for you to do a search for the hashtag Burbank Therapist, just hashtag Burbank Therapist. And when you get to that page, you should see top posts and recent posts. I want you to scroll down and then just share in the chat what you notice as you're scrolling down. And once you're done, you can go up to the top and you can click recent and look at the posts that are there and tell me what you notice. Hashtag Burbank Therapist. What do people notice? Anyone? Let's see here. Yes, you notice my page multiple times. Most of the posts are from me. Definitely, I see you a lot. Yes. So my second biggest secret here is literally play around with hashtags. My location was Burbank. When I got on Instagram for my private practice, I was like, I wonder if there's a hashtag Burbank Therapist, because sometimes people are looking for therapists in their community and they'll just look up by the location. Like I know my fiance, when he was looking for his barber, he was like hashtag Burbank barber. That's actually where I got the idea from too. I was like, I'm just going to do hashtag Burbank Therapist. And I kid you not, like there I am on social media. Whoever searches hashtag Burbank Therapist, I'm probably going to be the person that comes up the most. If you Google Burbank Therapist, that hashtag is going to come up and that's going to lead somebody directly straight to my social media page, which will lead them to my website. People love looking at your stuff and what you have out there. That's how clients find you. So you can get really creative on the hashtags you choose to post when you make a post, because that's how people are gonna find you. Anyone looking for a therapist in Burbank is going to see my profile. And that's the whole point. You want to get yourself out, and that costs me no money. That costs an investment of a post on social media and putting a hashtag. All right. So lastly, let's see here. Let's see here. Next. All right. So managing your online presence. So I want to talk a little bit about where you can manage yourself as a private practice online so that your clients have more access to you in the online setting. And these are very unique and different spaces that maybe you wouldn't necessarily think like, oh yeah, I want to advertise a private practice there. The number one place is a Yelp page. In the same way that you might use Yelp to find a restaurant, to find a hairstylist, to find a nail shop, whatever it might be. People are going there and people are finding their therapist there. Even if you have a virtual private practice like myself, I've created a Yelp page and I have people leave me reviews, and that's how clients find me. I've had a few clients come to me off of Yelp. So that's a place that I highly encourage you to think about marketing yourself. Also thinking about the various social media platforms you can use. I've listed a couple here that I've seen be not only successful for myself, but also successful for other people I know in private practice. On Facebook, you'll definitely want to create a business page. It's going to give clients access to you through Facebook. And then you'll also want to consider creating a group for those specialty populations that you're thinking about, because that gets people interested. People join groups for different things. I know myself, I'm in a group for therapists in private practice, right? So the same kind of way that you might network, it's the same kind of way that clients are looking for their therapists. They want to feel connected and they want to feel like they can get to know their therapist. And a way to do that is by creating groups on Facebook. Another way is to consider Instagram posting. You can just educate people on mental health, and you can choose to do so on your specialty areas. But another way on Instagram is actually doing Instagram live collaborations with people. If you're somebody who is familiar with Instagram or not familiar with Instagram, I encourage you to just check out a live and then see how you feel. It's a way for you to engage directly with your audience and for people to get a feel for who you are, and also collaborate with other professionals who may be doing similar private practice specialties as yourself. You'll also want to think about YouTube, because people love YouTube. A lot of the videos that I have on Instagram, I just have uploaded to YouTube. So they're the same videos. I just put them in a YouTube form so that I've created this YouTube page. If you go to YouTube and you search Glow and Therapy, some of my videos are going to come up. So you'll want to think about that platform as well. And then while I don't use TikTok, I know that during the pandemic, it's become extremely popular. I have seen it become very popular for mental health as well. A lot of my colleagues in the social media spaces that I'm involved in have been very successful with TikTok. So if you're super tech savvy and into creating content and videos, you'll definitely want to create a TikTok for your business. The number one advice I have for creating an online presence is to be consistent. I would say take advantage of the downtime you have now, like while you're waiting for your DBA. Think about some posts that you might want to create, because once you get really busy, it becomes harder to keep up with these things, right? And so we have very busy lives, we have lots of things going on, and I'm sure people can't always think about like, okay, well, what is it that I want to post here, right? But people are looking for people putting out products just very consistently, and your followers want to feel like you're invested in them and that you're putting out consistent content. So one way is by posting, but another way, if you don't always have time to post, is to consider utilizing stories or just a quick hop on, like, hey, I'm going to go live for a couple minutes and talk about the best way to manage depression this week, for example. And you just do a quick 1 to 2 minute video. It's a wonderful way to engage with your followers. You can also do so by doing things in your stories, like taking polls on certain things. I'm thinking about starting a podcast, and here are the 2 topics I want to do, A and B, and then have people vote on them. And then that gives you feedback on what people that are keeping up with your pages are interested in seeing more of. For those of you that are really into organization, I wanted to just point out that there's lots of apps out there that actually help with things like scheduling posts. You can come up with some posts for the month and put them all in an app, and it will automatically post for you. When and if you get to that space and you have questions about that, I'm more than welcome to share with you some of the apps that I know are efficient with just automatically posting for people. Again, why you want to build an online presence is because it'll allow the client to really see who you are as a clinician. And then it gives you the opportunity to really show the audience that you're the expert in your chosen specialty. All right. So that brings me to my last slide here, which is about really thinking about how to cultivate safety in an online setting. So you'll want to think safety is number one, as always, whether it's in person, online. Safety is always number one. It's really essential that you conduct risk assessments with every single one of your clients. Again, you'll want to be screening clients for who is an appropriate fit for an online setting or not. As I previously mentioned, it's very important to have an emergency contact form for every single client. And the bare minimum that needs to be on this emergency contact forms are the expectations in case of an emergency. Just really outlining to the client like what is expected and what is going to happen, and at what point would you utilize any one of the numbers that is listed there on the sheet that they complete. So this is actually a form that you give the client and the client fills out. The client will read the expectations you've outlined. They'll be aware of the emergency procedures specific to the telehealth setting, and then they'll get to identify an emergency contact person and provide a phone number. They'll also be required to list the name, address, and phone number for the nearest hospital, as well as the nearest police department wherever they're at. It's super important that these things are listed because, again, that covers you in terms of safety in an online setting. And heaven forbid you have an emergency and you have to utilize this form, you have all of the information already listed out for you. And it's an agreement. You and your client are in agreement on what's expected should an emergency come up. And then last but not least, you really want to confirm the physical location of your client in every single session. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients who are here in Southern California, and the next thing you know, I have a journalist as a client. Sometimes he has to travel to San Francisco, and he's now in San Francisco, and so I'm required to know where are the nearest emergency resources to him, depending on where he's at. So that's something I really want to just remind you guys of. Please confirm that physical location at every session. And then investing in an electronic health record system will provide you with a sample emergency contact form in which you can edit. But again, just do some research and find one that you feel really connects with who you are as a clinician, and make sure that you get that completed for everyone. All right, so that brings me to our very first activity that we did at the beginning. I had you all ground yourselves and think about what brought you here today, and just really setting an intention for what you were hoping to get out of the session, out of this webinar. I would love to hear in the chat if you've achieved your intention for today. So I'll take a look at that as you guys share. Someone said, absolutely. Awesome. Wonderful. Yes. Great. Beautiful. Excellent. Well, I want to just, again, thank you all for being here with me today and allowing me to share some of my knowledge with you. I, again, am available for any kind of questions. You can reach out to me, my website, glowintherapy.com, or you can also find me on any social media platform, Glow in Therapy. Pretty simple. So thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Joanne, I believe is going to close us out for today. Or actually, I forgot. We're going to go over questions. I almost forgot. Let's see here. Question. When you say your practice is full, what is a good amount of clients to actively provide support? So I will share with you, full for me is 20 consistent clients. I still have my very first client that came to me in October of 2019. So that's something that's going to be a personal question for you. What is manageable and what's feasible for you? 20 is a good number for me because it allows me to keep up with my self-care. It is, financially abundant for me, and people, not everybody comes to me weekly. So that's something I'm able to manage pretty effectively. So I would say do some investigating, interview some therapists out there that are in private practice, and ask them that question transparently. Do you mind sharing with me how many clients did you take on at the beginning and what was comfortable for you? So someone said, what are the best ways to include your CV or profile of yourself or your personal narrative? best ways to, can you clarify that question for me, Elaine, if you're there? Do you mean like in a online setting or on your website, or what do you exactly mean by that? Yes, website. Okay. So then this is where you'll want to do some of that. You'll want to do some of that reflective work on yourself, like thinking about what brings you here, what I mean, there's different kinds of ways to do it. It again is more of a, what is your style? So you'll really want to think about your style and who you are as a clinician and what you're comfortable sharing. You know, for me, self-disclosure is something that really helps people connect with you. It shows clients that you're not only like, you are somebody outside of being a therapist, right? It really helps them connect with you as human. So there are different ways where you can get creative on how to do that. I would say investing in, off the top of my head, I know there is a really great book out there. Oh my gosh, what is the name of it? It's a workbook, Finding Your True North, I believe. And that workbook is really good at getting to the bottom of like who you are, your authentic self, and connecting with that, and ways to just really do so in a professional manner. So I would do that. Someone said, I see CV on website as attachment. Okay, yeah, that's true. Some people do that. I also, on my website, I have a bottom, at the bottom, you can click on my education, my experiences, and things like that. And I list some things there as well. So that's a way that people can do so too. All right, let me see here.
And there was one question at the beginning in the chat regarding your logo, and what did you do to get that created?
Yeah, so what I did was Google some freelance graphic designers. So you can just go on Google and do freelance graphic designers, check out the artist portfolios. Two places off the top of my head that are really good for this is Upwork and Design Crowd. Those are really great for freelance work, and you can hire somebody to create a logo with you. You get to work with them and just kind of, I listed to them like what my values were and what kind of image I was hoping to come across with, and somebody designed that for me. So yeah, that's a place where you can check that out. Okay. All right. I don't see any other questions. Oh, somebody said, what do you say at the end of the first session or phone call that you can't accept them at this time, that you may need more extensive therapy than I would feel comfortable doing via telehealth? That's a great question. I would say, you know, again, this comes back to your personal style, right? If that call came to me, I would say, you know, after, you know, screening you and thinking about what I'm able to provide for you at the time, I don't feel that what I have to offer fits your needs at this time, and I have another place I'd like to refer you to. And then again, that's where the referral process is gonna come in handy for you, is having a place that you definitely, if you're not going to take somebody, common courtesy is to have somewhere or some place that you can refer them to. Sometimes I get calls for people who can't quite afford my fee, and I have at least 2 places where I will refer them to, where I know take people or are able to accommodate people at a lower rate. So that's something that you'll want to build up yourself. But I would say for what I'm offering at this time, I don't feel that I can meet your needs. Okay. Someone said Upwork and Design Crowd. Design Crowd is the other one. Okay. All right. I think that's it. So I will hand it over to Joanne. I think you're welcome. You're so welcome. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending.